Hello, this is Ari Witkes. I am joined by the one and only Akiva Poppers, and we are going to debut our Yeshiva League Pass tip-off podcast, where this week and every other week, which is going to be showing what's going on in the Yeshiva League. We're going to be doing our power rankings. Today's show is going to focus on our preseason rankings with a little knowledge with the just completed Magen David tournament. We are going to bring you all that's happening in the Yeshiva League. The content is for you, the audience, the players, the parents, the advertisers out there who want to know what's going on. We're going to debut it today. We're going to give our rankings from 19 down to 1. And again, this is our opinion. Myself, Ari Witkes, Akiva Poppers, and the Yeshiva League Pass committee, I guess right now is Akiva and myself. But, we're excited. I'm excited. I want to say hello to Akiva. Haven't had the privilege to work with him. Obviously, know a lot about you and the what you bring to the Yeshiva League and all the content at Max Live. Hello, and welcome to the show, Akiva.
Thank you, Ari. I'm excited as well for this podcast. It should be a good opportunity to not only give our opinions, but maybe bring on some guests, show some highlights, bringing you the power rankings every other week. Should be a fun time.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I also wanted to say we're going to bringing players of the week, or every 2 weeks when we do the show. We're going to recap what's going on. We're going to be inviting every time we have a show going forward. We're going to have a special guest who's going to be a brief interview just to acknowledge, what he's done in the Yeshiva League the past 2 weeks. And, it could be a superstar, could be someone who comes off the bench and really hits a big shot. So, we're excited to bring that, and also the plays of the week, the year, and everything else. So I think this is time to get going, Kiva. Let's start. Let's show them what's happening here in our preseason rankings. So for our first, we have 19 teams this year in the Varsity League. I should say this is just the Varsity League, and we're going to base everything based on the Yeshiva League. We know we have a couple big tournaments coming up with we just had the Magen David Yeshiva tournament. We have the Globerman tournament coming up in California, as well as the Cooper tournament in Memphis. So right now, going into that, this is right post Magen David preseason tournament at number 19. I know people are waiting to see who's number 19. It's the Rambam Ravens out of Long Island, New York. Akiva, tell us a little bit about Rambam. I know, last year, I don't know, they struggled a little, but what do you know about Rambam, and what should we look for this year?
Yeah, it was a struggle last year. They went 3-11, and it's one of those teams where obviously I'm sure they have high hopes to improve, but you got to base their preseason ranking just off of how they were performing last year, and until they prove that they belong higher, then obviously they're going to stay near the bottom. But obviously, and just like any team here, it's the preseason poll, right? There's an opportunity to go up, and for Rambam,
there's only an opportunity.
Rambam, to go up they can't go down, right? So so they're at 19.
Yeah, so they're at 19, and again, our rankings, our based on our intel and what we see, so they come in at number 19. At number 18, we go to the Kushner Cobras from Livingston, New Jersey. Kushner is a team that I know a little bit about. They fight, they play hard, great coaches. They have a lot of stability with their coaches, and they've had them in their system a long time. The players, they're generally very good offensively. What I think they lack sometimes is maybe on the defensive effort, which sometimes on the bottom half of the teams, you find that teams have the offensive firepower, but they don't necessarily have the defense fortitude to close out games. What's some intel on Kushner that you can tell us that we should be on the lookout for?
Yeah, I mean, this is a team which was good about 5 years ago. They had a very strong season then. It's been a little downhill since then. Just like Rambam, they went 3-11 last year, so also they're kind of looking to work their way up and prove that they belong higher. But really, until they have those results, there's nothing much we can do other than slot them near the bottom.
Right, absolutely. And then we slide over to number 17. This is the Hank Hurricanes out of Uniondale, New York. So Hank is a team that I actually saw, and I was at the Magen David preseason tournament, because where else would you rather be than watching a lot of Yeshiva League basketball? So I personally saw Hank, and Hank is going to be a team that, without a doubt, is going to upset some teams, maybe higher in the rankings, maybe even some powers in the league. They are a three-point shooting team. They hit a lot of three-point shots. They take a lot of three-point shots. So, they say live and die by the three. Sometimes they will live and they will upset some teams, and sometimes they will, not make those shots. But they have, I believe, a kid named Brand, who was a great shooter. These kids can shoot every time they release the ball. you think it's going in. And they play some gritty defense. They also have a new coach, very young, very into it, aggressive, a lot of passion. So I look for Hank to really climb up and, like I said, maybe upset some teams. And anything else on Hank that you have on the inside, Akiva?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to see what happens with the new coach. Donnie Katz is now in Philadelphia. So new coach, new plan as to how to handle his players. Also, another team which went 3-11 last year. And like you said, teams which live and die by the three, they will have days when they do get hot. And that does give them the opportunity to upset some teams which may be better than them even. But frankly, with a team like Hank, they need to show up on the defensive end in order to go up in the rankings.
Absolutely. But again, they do have the capability. And now we're coming in at number 16. Sweet 16 is the MTA Lions. So the MTA, we know, lost, if not all, most of their starters from last year. I would say they have an advantage and a disadvantage. I think they have an advantage because they're playing at Yeshiva University at the Mac Center, which is obviously the mecca of Yeshiva League basketball right now. And I also believe it's a disadvantage because every team comes in there, thinking of playing on Championship Sunday, right? Getting used to that with the YU court, the Mac Center. And generally there's fans there. There's college kids, there's high school kids, there's, transit people around. There's always something going on. And Akiva, you probably know best than anyone, what's the environment like at an MTA game, when another team is coming into their building?
Well, it really depends on if there's some sort of special night plan, right? If they've got a Mishmar game going on, right, they'll bring out a couple hundred kids. But, if it's just some random game on some random night, you might get the dorm kids, but that's about it. Right now, obviously, when MTA was performing stronger, they had some great seasons a few years ago when they were competing in the playoffs and in the picture really. When that was going on, there were some more fans who showed up to their games. But it can be difficult when the team is not performing so well to have kids to have convince them that it's worth their time to come to the games. Obviously, that's something that they're going to hope to do. It's going to be interesting to see what they do here in terms of balancing the seniors from last year's squad versus juniors coming up from JV. So that'll be something which I'm interested to see. But yeah, Coach Sullivan it's going to be an interesting situation for him this year. And I mean, you kind of have to respect the past and slot them at 16, but also it's really unclear how this is going to all come together. We need to see them on the court, really.
Right. And that's another thing. You brought up a great point, Akiva. One of the other things is, we're looking at our rankings and we're thinking about the JV, how these kids played in JV. Coming up to varsity, it's a completely different animal. The physicality of the game, the speed of the game, it's really different. So you may be successful on JV, and then you may take a little time to get acclimated with the varsity level. So that's another thing. And by the way, Mishmar and Poppers is always a good recipe for a good crowd. No pun intended, Akiva. I couldn't help it. That'll be my last Poppers reference.
Sounds good.
All right. So then we go into number 15. The number 15 team is from the west side of New York, or the Heschel Heat. So Heschel is a team that we don't know a lot about. They're actually going to be on they're another new coach this year. They had the great coach, Evan Pickman, who led that program to glorious heights and even won a championship about 4 or 5 years ago. And now they turned the keys over to some different program, different coaching staff. And, they play hard. They're very competitive. I do know they have a senior, Jesse Storch, who's been on the team since his sophomore year. And he actually played for Coach Pickman a couple of years ago. So they're a team that has some veterans on the team. They're always very prideful in the way they play. And I look for them to, again, they give everyone a good match. And they're, a team that you don't know much about right now. But I think that they're someone we'll become more familiar with as the season progresses.
Yeah, and when you have a new coach, that means a new system, and the identity of the team could change. And it's another one of those things where it's just very hard to project preseason unless you've got an insider's look. And, obviously we're not in the locker rooms, we're not at the practices. So we're just giving our most objective possible ranking just based on the outside information we know. It's another one of those things where we're just going to have to see how it plays out in order to come up with a more accurate ranking.
Absolutely. And I have tried using my Yeshiva League Pass Media Pass to get into some gyms. Doesn't work, although it's, they're like,
expired.
oh, that's pretty cool. Yeah, exactly. They're like, no, not going to happen. So then we head to number 14. At 14, this is a very interesting team. It's the Or Yisrael. I don't know their nickname. Do you know the Or Yisrael? We'll call them the Israelites. I don't know their.
Is good.
All right, so they are a team where they also have a new coach. They have a past champion at the JV level, W. Foreman, coming over from Fresh. He is now the varsity coach at Or Yisrael. They are a very athletic team. They have a new system, and W will get them playing fast and furious. They have two kids, Rosahada and Rosen, really, really athletic, really strong offensively. Where they may struggle, which is similar to the teams we said before, is defensively, right? If you're athletic, you score the ball. But if you're scoring 60 but giving up 65, it becomes a little difficult. But they have the athletes, and they're another team that will, on any given night, can beat a team that's possibly ahead of them in the rankings.
Yeah. Common trend with all the teams which we've mentioned so far is they either won 3 games last year or they won 4 games last year. This is naturally how it's going to be. A preseason power ranking is mostly going to be based on last year, and obviously last year's results are meaningless, right?
Right.
It's just taking what we know and putting it together in power ranking, and every team here has an opportunity to prove that they belong much higher.
Right. And one thing I should mention, Or Yisrael kind of has an advantage because they don't have a JV team. So the kids who are in 9th or 10th grade, they're playing varsity. And even if you're in 9th or 10th grade and you may not be getting much playing time, but you're practicing always with the kids, a little older, the upperclassmen, that tends to give you a little advantage where, you're brought up to the game and the speed of it a little quicker than a team who's, has a JV as well. So that's something to look for.
And it might not come into play this year, but you may see in a few years, you got another new coach situation here. You've got an opportunity for a coach to start developing players into his system starting in 9th grade. And, with some other schools in the Yeshiva League, potentially the JV and the varsity coaches aren't on the exact same page. And so maybe there's a little difference going from JV to varsity. Here, it's one coach handling everything. So he already is developing players with both the current and the future in mind. So that also could work as an advantage for them.
Right. Absolutely. And then we head to number 13, the Hillel Heat. Hillel is a team that they lost a lot of firepower last year, which is kind of what we've said a lot about the teams here in lower in the rankings or higher in the rankings, I guess. Is it higher or lower in the rankings?
I call it lower. Yeah, the number is higher, but you're lower in the rankings.
All right, Akiva, I'm going to go with you because you're the technician, the operator here and everything. So I'll go with you. So Hillel lost Braha from last year, but guess what? He's got a younger brother. I believe it's Eli or Ellie. I'm going to go Eli Braha, who is a phenomenal player, great shooter. He gets to the lane, pull-up jumper. He's a dog, doesn't quit. He may be down by 20. He still thinks he can gunsling his way back into the game, and he has. He actually, in the Magen David tournament, they had a great game against Or Yisrael, and they ended up being victorious by 1 point, led by Braha. But they also, Tzvi Goldberg, a veteran coach in the Yeshiva League. Hillel always, switches it up on defense, offense. They'll throw a lot of things at you, and they're competitors, And the one thing, the advantage of Hillel is that anytime someone drives to Hillel from wherever they are, it's a long road trip. So
that's true. Yeah. That's true. And also they're naturally, as a result, used to long road trips themselves.
Right. Correct. So those West Coast trips that they take to New Jersey or the other Long Island, wherever they go, they're very used to that travel. So that brings us to number 12 in the ranking. It's the Yde Thunder. Yde is typical Yde. They're gonna come at you and they're gonna compete hard. I believe they always come with a little chip on their shoulder, right? They're kind of overlooked in the Brooklyn trilogy between Magen David and Flapper. So I feel like they always come in kind of like Hank with Hafter and DRS. They're always feeling, and like Rambam as well, that they may not be the big powerhouse school like those other schools, but they're competitors and they are a team to be reckoned with. They always have great shooters, great coaching. Their defensive philosophy is in your face, tough man-to-man defense. And you've seen Yde over the years. They always have these scorers that come up that I personally may not be familiar with, but after a week or two of seeing them, they're usually one of the top 5 players in the league.
Yeah, they do a good job of developing talent too, and it's a team which could potentially make a run of this thing. Could be a playoff team this year.
Right, absolutely. And then, like you said, once you get in the playoffs, it's, everyone is on notice. It's, win or go home. So they are definitely sniffing around the playoff position as the 12th seed. Now with the 11th seed, the Waterberry Wolfpack. Waterberry, one of my favorite teams from the years, having been around the league, watching my kids play in it and then coaching in it. Always the atmosphere it's a Waterberry extravaganza. They bring the ruach, they bring the fans, and this year not only do they have Rabbi Kalish, they have his great son Yde Kalish, who finally is going to be a senior. I joked with him. I saw him at the Mag and David tournament. I said, "You're still on varsity?" He said, "Yeah, I started when I was a freshman or sophomore, and it's now my third year, but he's done. This is it." Great player, point guard. He is just fabulous kid, great smile. He's always just enjoying the game. And I think he brings that energy to his teammates. And Waterberry is a lot of times they're, new players. They have different kids coming in and out of the yeshiva. And they always have these athletes. And again, they compete, I would say almost as hard or harder than most teams that I see. They just really want it. They really corral that energy. And, they're a team that, they went 1-1 or 2-1 in the Mag and David tournament. They lost to JEC in a close game, but then they beat some teams as well. So, what's your history with Waterberry, Akiva, that you can, let our audience know about as well?
Yeah, Waterberry is always an interesting school. I remember one of my MTA senior games I attended, we were playing Waterberry on one of these Mishmar nights, like I was mentioning.
There it is. That seems to be the theme.
It was one of these, I don't know, it was whatever madness, whatever it was supposed to be. It was not a pretty game. I think Waterberry won by at least 15. Defensively, they were very stout. Yde is a very good player. Last year he was their leading scorer in that playoff loss to DRS. Now they've got a little playoff experience under their belt. Another one of these teams which could sneak up and make a little run here.
Right, absolutely. And now at number 10, the previously mentioned Yde Thunder, I believe, is their name as well. So JEC is an interesting team. They are a team that can, compete. They have some size. They have a big kid, Kadosh, a 6'6" player. Some may say 6'7".
I would say 6'7".
6'7". Okay, we were both looking up when I saw him at the Mag and David tournament. I'm like, yeah, that's a tall guy. So he plays a little bit. Yeah, were you going to say, Akiva?
Yeah, he's pretty skinny, but he's very tall.
Right. Well, which is exactly what I say. He's a little Kevin Durant build like, right? He's got these skinny legs, plays outside, likes the mid-range jumper, not really down low, looking to score inside. He kind of shoots over you. So he's a really good ball player. They have Walsman, who's probably their best all-around player, and they have a kid named Sspr. So their starting unit could match up with, probably anyone in the 3 to 6 range as far as the rankings. What they lack a little is depth. They don't have the depth, so it's tough. Night out, you definitely foul trouble becomes a problem in games. They have the great coach Avi Bornstein, who's been around the Yeshiva League. Seen it all, been a couple different places, and does a phenomenal job with JEC. And I look for them to have a good year and sneak into the playoffs. And again, don't sleep on them. They will take you, and they will enjoy it as well.
Yeah, Sarachek Tier 3 champions last year. I'd like to see if Kadosh in his first year here with JEC, first full year, can develop somewhat of a post game. Just at that size, even with his current weight, he can be dominant just because there aren't a lot of big kids in the Yeshiva League who can match up with him one-on-one. So it's something which I'd like to see, and obviously we'll have to see if that happens. But he's very raw. There's a lot of talent there.
A lot of talent and a hard worker, from what I've been told, according to our sources. We have the Schwarzakowski on our sidelines and all those other great Jewish insiders. So there we go. Number 9, we come to one of the powerhouses of the Yeshiva League. Probably a little not too happy with their preseason ranking, but again, let's see what happens. They haven't played yet, but at number 9, the Frisch Cougars. Frisch is always a powerhouse in the league. Last year, led by Coach Brian Jensen, they went to the championship game where they lost to North Shore. One of the reasons that they're not in higher in the rankings is because one of the kids who left the program, Alex Zakheim, who graciously graduated for the rest of the league, so they don't have to deal with his superpowers anymore. Frisch is always going to be a strong team. I think they're just going to have to really put it on paper. Their bread and butter right now is they're led by the big man Ezra Berkowitz. They have Roni Human, a good senior guard. and they have some players coming up from the JV. I think they also had maybe a not as a great a season on the JV level as they had hoped to have previously also. So I think those factors combining with a little of the unknown, because most of their players last year, besides Roni and Ezra, were really senior players on their team. But again, Frisch, big school, always a lot of ball players. And, Akiva, you've seen Frisch play. How do you think they're going to feel about the 9 ranking and, what's their outlook?
No, I mean, I can't imagine they'll be too pleased with it, but it's one of those things, again, where it's just very difficult to project on paper. And a lot of the reason why they're at 9 is just because we know what they're capable of, right? We know what the upside possibility here is. I mean, just based on what they're returning from last year's team, if you don't include the JV team, maybe they belong even lower than 9, but that they're going to be competitive. It's Frisch, right? So that just taking that into account, they obviously belong in the picture. And it's one of those things where you just don't know how these kids are going to do now. They're going from 10th grade to 11th grade, and you got to see how it actually plays out.
Right. And on the other thing, and I said that, they were pretty much a dominant senior team. Sometimes those juniors don't just get the opportunity. They could be they are really good ball players, but they have kids like Schiffman, Zachheim ahead of them. And it's just like, you got to bide your time and, wait for your year. And then we've seen kids come out senior year and they've been the best players in the league, and they were kind of not slept on, just maybe a little, they didn't have the notoriety they did as juniors. So, again, that's an interesting team. So we'll see how they progress throughout the year. At number 8, we have the Hafter Hawks. Hafter is a team that returns, let me think, everybody from last year. They were a junior-led team last year, and now they're a senior-led team. Their best player on the team is probably Kevin Levy. He's been on the varsity since sophomore year as well. And they also have a phenomenal big kid, Peter Drucker, 6'5", great footwork. And, Kevin and Peter, if they're on the same page working together, I think they can really put in for a possible division title. But we'll get to their division, which we haven't mentioned. A lot of the powers, and those teams are a little above them. But for Hafter is a team that, Coach Joey Honing's been around. Great coach, great system. They're going to be there, and they're going to have to really rely on Levy, Drucker, and Sam Siri to really lead them, as the season progresses.
Yeah, they were already 8-6 last year with basically all juniors, and so yeah, obviously. If anything, you might argue that they belong higher. I just don't know if their performance in the Mag and David tournament warrants them being higher at this point.
Right.
Maybe if we were holding this episode before the Mag and David tournament, we'd have them closer to 5.
Agreed. They did also. They had a tough matchup. They played Flatbush, who we haven't mentioned, and DRS, who we haven't mentioned. So their road to their first 2 preseason games was like welcome to the big leagues. Those were two really good teams. So again, very good team, very strong team, and look to them to go up a couple notches in the rankings and really have a great season. At number 7, we have the SAR Sting. SAR, again, another team, lost a lot of seniors. They were a really strong team last year. They had a great run at Sarachek. Their Yeshiva League season was probably somewhat disappointing. They were probably hoping to get back to the championship game. They fell a little short by losing to Frisch in the semis. But, their team is a lot of potential. They had a really strong JV team last year. Juniors coming up. Their seniors are Teplitsky, Glick, Orlo, and on the junior side, but Elias, I always say his name wrong. I apologize. Anyone's names I say wrong, and please let me know when I do. But a lot of offensive firepower. Coach Halpert, great coach, defensively gets that team ready, and they're going to be able to throw a lot of kids out you. So I feel like with SAR Sting, you're going to find kids that we may not know right now, but they're going to get their chance as seniors. Again, as juniors, they didn't have the chance to really, show what they can do and help their season out. Yeah,
and the semifinal game was actually against North Shore, which makes it even more impressive. Right, they only lost by 2 to North Shore, and North Shore's place. But obviously a totally different team this year. But I mean, just like Frisch, in a sense, SCR is such a big school and such a powerhouse in the Yeshiva League that there are players there who are talented, who are going to step up, who we just don't know so much about, and we're going to find about them soon. Right.
Yeah, and we may be interviewing them on the show here in the upcoming weeks, which we didn't even know about. We'll say, hi, remember when we were talking about not knowing kids? Welcome to the Player of the Week. So
Right. And so even if they had a disappointing JV season last year, and now they're trying to a lot of those kids are now in varsity level and hoping to make their mark. I wouldn't take so much of that into account just because
Right.
it's SAR.
Right, and when we say disappointing JV season, I think they still went 8-2. But if you don't win the championship, sometimes with some of these schools, you classify as perhaps disappointing. But we all know winning a championship is a lot of different factors. But yeah, a very good team. And at number 6, again, this is a team that I kind of slept on a little. And Akiva, you and I talked about this, when we were going through the rankings a little. DRS, right? The DRS Wildcats again. Didn't know much of their players, predominantly again seniors. I think they kind of overachieved even last year, as a team that kind of no one knew. But never underestimate the heart of a Wildcat and the greenhouse, because those kids, they come out, the fans come out, and they propel you to play better and kind of sometimes out of your body, right? Just the environment is amazing, and they take their show on the road also. So their fans, I think, give them 3 points every game, at the minimum. And they're just a really strong team. They have one returning senior who got varsity minutes last year, Aiden Buckbinder, really solid, jack of all trades, does it all. He's not going to flash. He's not going to dunk. He's not going to hit 6 threes in a game. But before you know it, he'll have 20 points, and you're like, well, this kid's everywhere. So he is a player to look out for. And also on the a junior coming in is Joseph Aaron, who is phenomenal player, really tall kid. Again, kind of like Kadosh, how we said plays outside with the size, as he kind of like fills out his body, but a really strong player. And, tell us a little bit about DRS, what you've heard about them, and, why they're at number 6 in the rankings in the preseason.
Yeah, I think Aaron's one of the better juniors in the Yeshiva League this year. And, a big piece of this when you're ranking teams is how talented are the kids and how good do they coalesce? How good is their chemistry? And together, that's how good the team is, right? And DRS might not have the 6th best talent, but at least from what we've seen and saw in the Mag and David tournament, they certainly look to have one of the top chemistries, certainly for October at this point. They look really good as a team. And so while yes, they may not have so many names, they may not have the depth of talent that some of the other teams here competing for a championship have, certainly they have that chemistry already worked out, and so that's why they're our number 6, right?
Right, and also I should mention they have a new coach. The great Avram Stein retired. He's out in doing his Disney tour, his farewell tour. One of the greatest and nicest coaches that you'll ever be around. And he implemented that zone defense that people remembered forever. And now Moshe Cohen, who was their JV coach for the past 4 or 5 years, great coach, different system, different energy, just different style, but also we'll rely on the DRS faithful to really propel his team as they come in as number 6 in the rankings. So here we have, now we're into the top 5. So these are all championship contenders. I would say probably 9 and above right now. I think all have a chance, maybe 6 to 9 on the outside, but the top 6 definitely, probably the title favorites. But at number 5, you have the TABC Storm. TABC, it stops and starts with Coach Oz Cross. One of the best coaches in the league, and I say the league, the NBA also, because he trains NBA players. So he is a phenomenal coach. He coached JV and Varsity last year. He led the JV TABC Storm along with Eyal Kindlerer to the championship. Great team, great program. Again, fan base is phenomenal. They really pack out the Storm Center, I believe it's called, or the gymnasium. And Eyal Kindlerer, Yoni Mandel, juniors coming up to varsity, really big time players. I see them having no issue getting acclimated with the varsity level. And also they have a senior, Simmons, in Gurin, or Gurin, I should say. I'm sorry. Right, there it is. That's Akiva. Thank you. English is my second language, so it's actually my first. That's another story. But so those players really good. And again, TABC, another team, you may not have had a lot of opportunity as a junior. Then you come up on the senior, and you're a top player in the league. So TABC at number 5.
Yeah, and I mean they went 10-4 last year. I don't know if they were actually as good as 10-4 might indicate, but certainly with the players which they're bringing up from JV to the varsity level, this is a team which can compete for a championship, just because that's a major influx of talent. Certainly they're going to be more talented last year than they were last year. And yeah, Kindler is probably already in the discussion for one of the best players in the league as a junior. So very exciting, and we'll see how it plays out.
Right, absolutely. And at number 4 comes up the team that TABC beat in the championship at the JV level, the Ramaz Rams. Ramaz is a team who, they were very junior-led last year, and now those juniors become seniors. Most of their contributors last year, as I said, were juniors. I believe the record was 6-8. They made it into the playoffs. They got a little postseason experience. And again, their team is led by senior Milan Kushner. They bring up the entire pretty much the entire starting JV team who lost to TABC. Isaac Ohayon, who's a junior, a really strong athletic big who can really score inside, outside, and really has a presence down low. And then they have Coach Scott Ferguson, another great coach in the league. The coaching in the Yeshiva League has really just kind of like gone to another level, and that's I think why we've seen so many teams, be strong as well. So the Ramaz Rams are a team. Probably, I would say them and TABC will be battling out for first place in their division on paper. But I think they have a great opportunity to really advance as the season goes on.
Yeah, and Kushner, it's nice to have that senior-led talent along with a lot of juniors coming up. You need to have. It's very difficult, and some teams are able to do it. And maybe like a North Shore where you have kids coming up from 10th grade to 11th grade, and immediate impact is made. But you need to have the 12th grade kids there. You can't just have all 11th graders. It's a big jump, and so I think that is very helpful for them. And Scott always does a great job.
Right. So that's the Ramaz Rams at number 4. At number 3, the aforementioned North Shore Hebrew Academy Lions. North Shore was going to be number 1, and personally on my rankings, and I kind of took out their preseason tournament, against Mag and David. But the thing that concerns, but before I talk about the concerns, phenomenal team, phenomenal coach. They Shalom Babayev. They won the Yeshiva League championship last year. Took the league by storm. Went 14-0. Really had maybe 1 or 2 close games during the Yeshiva League and playoffs. I don't even think they had a game where it was much closer than 5 to 6 points. They're seniors. They started 3 juniors last year, and those are the players I want to focus on. You have Ben Abizadeh, the tall, long, lengthy lefty, great player inside, outside. Big Jordan Zarka, another big guy down low, and Jonah Carmili, the point guard. The issue with North Shore is health. Right now, they have Jonah Carmili, who I spoke to at the Mag David tournament. He's dealing with an injury, a stress fracture right now. He hopes to be back. He looked great wearing a suit, helping the team coaching on the sidelines. But, he's raring to get out there. So he's not sure it's going to be a month or 2. But, he obviously has to get a refuah shlema to him. And also, Big Ben Abdizadeh also is dealing with a thumb injury. So they're not at full power yet. Once they are, I think they're going to be right there. I mean, you saw them at Sarachek. You saw them throughout the season. I mean, you just know they're going to be there. And what are some thoughts on the program?
So first of all, the loss of Orbach and Falik are, those are losses, and those are obviously impactful. And I certainly North Shore is not going to go 14-0 again this year. There's arguments to be made both ways, but even if they're fully healthy, they probably are not as good as they were last year, just based on those losses. But I think the biggest factor here, and it plays off of what you said about health, is depth. They don't really have that depth, and because they're not healthy, that could really kill them. Certainly early on here, and we saw that in Sarachek against Eula, right? They had the injury very early on, and that potentially was the difference maker in that game.
Sure, and also, I'm sorry to interrupt you, Akiva. I should also mention that North Shore probably has the toughest schedule of any team in the league. I think their out-of-conference games are against. I don't know off the top of my head. I just know that they're playing powerhouses. They have no games where it's like they may be able to ease into it. And again, like with injury, they may be a month into the season. The losses teams that they maybe could have beaten earlier. Usually. Take a loss, and that kind of catches up as you have to go into seedings for the playoffs. So
sure. They only got 1 team on their schedule, which was the 3-win team last year in Hank. That's it.
Right. So nothing easy, but you know what? They've won the championship the past 2 years for those juniors, now seniors. So they're not used to anything easy. They have championship pedigree. They've been in big moments since they were in 10th grade, 9th grade. So they're going to be fine. It's just a matter of health, and we hope to see all those big guns out there. And until they are, we'll have the other kids, an opportunity arises, and hopefully they'll gain some valuable experience. And here we are at number 2. They're from Brooklyn, and I believe we have 2 teams left from Brooklyn.
Big soccer.
Right, exactly. We're going to put at number 2 the Flatbush Falcons, a phenomenal team. Saw them at the Magen David tournament. They are in your face intensity. UNLV pick you up full court. Beat me man on man. Just play hard nosed defense. They have probably, in my opinion, the best pure big in the league. Benny Kangaroo Keita. If you've seen him play, if you've seen him, I think Yeshiva League Pass already had his block and then dunk in one possession. It was actually there. It was one of them. Yeah, one of the most physically dominant moves I've ever seen in Yeshiva League basketball.
I don't even know if that's what makes him great. I mean, there are a lot of attributes. His game is very well developed. He's a very high quality big.
Yeah, very big. And then they got Ronnie Shaya, number 24, great shooter. He's a kid you think you're guarding. He elevates, he step backs, and he'll hit big shots. They got Cooper, who's a great point guard, calm, cool, makes his foul shots. And then they have someone who I dubbed mid-range Mamba, Shama, who this kid, 12 to 15 feet out, money. And it's a very rare thing to see because, everyone thinks the 2-point mid-range shot is not a good shot. It's good when you can hit it as often as this kid does. And they also have a new coach, Matthew Mouth. They have bench players. I mean, they're fun to watch. And, Keita on the defensive end is he's an eraser. I mean, he if he doesn't average 10 blocks a game, I think then, he's sleeping through those games because he's that athletic and that good. So they're at number 2. Anything else you wanted to say on Flatbush that I may have missed? I had a lot of superlatives for that, but
no, a lot of superlatives. Obviously, they performed well in the MDY tournament, and there's a lot of talent there.
Right, absolutely. And then the team that is number 1 in our preseason rankings, they earned it. They beat the number 2 team by 1 point in the championship game, the Magen David Warriors. And Magen David is they are who you think they are. They're the same type of team they've been probably for the past 7 years. I mean, they're relentless. They come at you. They have great coaching. Ike Dweck, Spike to everyone in the league, Benny Mann, and More Zarif. They are just a powerhouse coaching. And then they have a trilogy, a big 3 of Haber, Sardar, and Moses Smecki, a transfer from Hillel, who is just the firepower they have is unbelievable. And they probably have, in my opinion, the best 4th option in the league, Josh Shabbat, who's was a sophomore last year, came up to the varsity level this year. Phenomenal player. They have Abed, and then they have kids off the bench, and their team is just, never out of it. They're always competing, and offensively they can get with you, defensively, and I think they're just, number 1 on our rankings preseason, well deserved for winning their, the tough Magen David preseason tournament. But that's where I peg them. I think we're both in agreement on that. And what do you have to add about the Magen David Warriors?
Yeah, I mean, well, first of all, it's not necessarily when you beat a team head to head that means you're better, and certainly it doesn't mean that you belong higher in a power ranking. But in this situation, right? I mean, yeah, they're right there with Flatbush. They beat Flatbush head to head, and it's a preseason ranking. And I certainly think they belong at number 1 just based off of that. And obviously, it's very early, but certainly they're very talented. Ike does a phenomenal job, and it's very, very tough to deal with how they guard defensively. And I mean, it is no possessions off when you're playing against them.
No,
you cannot fall asleep at the wheel.
No, sometimes it feels like they have 10 kids on a court at once. It really does, right? They're just like, wait, 1, 2, and you count like, oh, it's only 5. But that's how they are.
Smecki is a huge get for them, and goes without saying that they're going to be competing for a championship this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think like we started when we talked earlier in the broadcast, in our next show, we're going to have, we may take our sheet, throw it out, right? We'd be like, wait, we just had the Cooper tournament. We thought this team was better than that team, and on paper, and then all of a sudden, one team beats someone by 20, one team loses to another by a nail biter. There's so much competition coming up. not only in these tournaments, the Cooper tournament, you can have Flatbush and Magan in a championship again. You can have the Globerman tournament, Frisch, SAR, Ramaz, the Shalhevet, the Eulas, and all those different teams. The competition is going to be amazing. We're going to bring you all the action. We also wanted to let you know we have advertisers who have approached us, and we're looking for more advertisers. We're really trying to bring those advertisers who come to our audience and the Yeshiva League Pass. If you are interested in advertising any product, any store, any merchandise, Poppers at yeshivaleaguepass.com. Poppers is Poppers, right? There we go. Okay, got that.
Yep. Or you can also DM Yeshiva League Pass on Instagram if that's easier for you.
Right, absolutely. We have different opportunities for advertisers, and again, if you're upset with your ranking, this is just two people's opinions, and Yeshiva League nerds, as we call ourselves. I mean, we just love this game. We love watching the competition, and personally, I just love seeing the kids who you may not know about, and all of a sudden they become the stars of the league. I think that's the beauty of Yeshiva League basketball. Who works hard in the off season, who's really putting it all together, and who sometimes just gets an opportunity. So I think that's the show. We're going to be back again in about 2 weeks after those two big tournaments. I'm Ari Witkes, and you are
Akiva Poppers,
and we are Yeshiva League Pass Tip-Off Podcast, and we will be back with you. Hope you enjoyed the show.